My name's Roy Sandbach. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to talk about innovation for billions, as I used to work for 31 years at Procter & Gamble. And I think you may find some of the things that we did in Procter & Gamble useful day to day, even in small companies, even in B2B businesses. I've talked about these things broadly across the business universe. Right, I better work on my DNA first. That's DNA, so that gives you my scientific credibility. My DNA as an innovator is really quite simple. That was the prototype, that's the patent, that's the product, and it's worth $100 million in the United States. I should say also, from the point of view of failure, that product was tried in the United Kingdom, and it failed in the United Kingdom for one reason, and it could have failed for many reasons. We understood perfectly well why it failed. We just were unable to take it back into the marketplace. So it's hugely successful in the US and not successful at all here in the UK. So that's my business credibility. Right, on 22, you all know Procter & Gamble, $22 billion brands. Every day, 3.5 billion people in the world use a Procter & Gamble product. 3.5 billion people. It's a huge responsibility. It's a huge business. It requires a huge innovation engine. The big issue that Procter & Gamble has in the world is that it needs to deliver money and it needs to deliver products. This is Tide in the United States. This is Tide in China. This lady is using Tide in a river. They are skinning a pig, and the water is going in that direction, right? That's a bit of a problem from an innovation point of view. It's indeed a bit of a problem for an R&D and an understanding point of view. The issue is that Procter & Gamble needs to deliver for Wall Street around $4 billion worth of organic growth. $4 billion, right, that's the size of Starbucks. That's the size of Ryanair. That's the size of Smith & Nephew. These are big companies, and Procter has to deliver an engine of growth which relates to those sizes of companies. It's an extraordinarily mind-focusing fact. A definition of innovation that I have, which is, and I'm going to just tell you what it is, it's matching what's needed with what's possible for economic value or social good. So let me just do that again. What's needed with what's possible for economic value or social good, or indeed both. Now, key in there are what's needed and what's possible. We're going to talk a bit about what's needed in the context of P&G, and some of these principles are important for you. In the old days, P&G talked about things which were entirely functional. They talked about superior value, and indeed, they talked about reliability. Often in innovation, we, in big companies, make suggestions for change. But when it comes to the plant in Cairo at 12 p.m., it's 45 degrees, and the product's going past the guy operating the line. That innovation had better be easy for him to understand and easy for him to pick up if there's a problem. So it's innovation in practice, innovation managed by people who are not necessarily me, but people in the Procter world. Reliability was key for Procter in that context. Are people getting the design as promised every week, every 2 weeks? People today want something bigger and better. They're more sophisticated today, and the world changes quicker. Change happens to you. And so in order to stop yourself from becoming a commodity, you have to do something quickly. And you can only do it through innovation that is a combination process of consumer understanding what you're doing, for whom, understanding the technology opportunities and the feasibility for that technology, and then the design that you apply. There is always a sense of the functional and the emotional in products today that consumers use. This is even true for B2B. If you take a company like BAE Systems, they sell into Ministry of Defence. But if they can get to the heart of the procurer and not just to the head of the procurer, then they will get the business easier and quicker and better. And I've shared this kind of presentation with boards of significant companies in the B2B area, and they began to understand the importance of emotion as well as function. But today, innovation has no boundaries. And Procter & Gamble began to recognize that around the year 2000, and they started to embrace a mechanism which was called open innovation, which was essentially matching what's possible with what's needed. Remember, I said that earlier, from anywhere, with shared risk and reward. And the fundamental is not everybody who's bright works for you. Now, in P&G, that's called, and it's branded, connect and develop rather than research and develop. So connect. Find solutions for those what's needed problems somewhere else. What that meant was, remember I said we needed 4 billion per year of new sales generation with 9,000 people. At a rough guide, there are around 2 million people who are working on technologies or designs or business models or marketing approaches that are novel and could interest P&G. The really important point is that by looking outside, it's possible to de-risk the process, because you don't have to start in the creative spaghetti. You can actually take ideas which are already really well formed, cooked ideas, and you can apply them in your company, in your organization, using the brands that you have if they fit with the brands. So there's a sense of de-risking by going outside, which is a very, very important element of the way in which open innovation is used, if it's used well. The other point that's absolutely critical is that you have to have an innovation definition which is quite broad, matching what's possible with what's needed for economic value from anywhere in any aspect of your business, whether it's manufacturing optimization or marketing approach optimization or design capability. You look everywhere, and that's what P&G put in place. Just a couple of examples. This is an example of National Air Traffic Control working with McLaren on algorithms for movement of aircraft around Heathrow. Those algorithms are currently being used in pit stop changes for McLaren. And those two companies got together in an open innovation process to create some novel technology applications. Lego crowdsources some innovations in Mindstorms and in Cuso. It's well worth looking at that. There are some incentivized competitions in General Electric called Imagination. And GSK has just made access to its cancer drugs freely available in an open source manner. So there are all sorts of open innovation opportunities. I'd love it if you all embrace some of these, because only by doing that will the Northeast become a true innovation hotspot. I need to talk about Ken. Everybody knows who Ken is. Ken is, come on, Barbie's husband, Barbie's boyfriend. Come on, come on. Ken is Barbie's boyfriend. Great innovators are usually called Ken. No? 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 Great innovators are usually called Ken. Ken Barlow, Ken Norton. By the way, I've tried lots of Kens. There aren't very many inspirational Kens, which is a bit of a pity. Any Kens in the room? Yeah, any Kens in the room? I've asked that question before, by the way, and I've got hundreds. Anyway, Ken, this is what great innovators have. They've got a knowledge breadth. They have an expertise depth, and they have an outstanding network. If you want to be a great innovator, I would suggest that you ask yourself the question, do you have great Ken? I hope that was of some limited value. My Sunderland DNA says if there was one thing in there that was of any value, then I've achieved my objectives. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me in the graveyard shift.